Hello everyone. Now we are starting with a new chapter, that is genetics. Now what is genetics? Genetics is basically the study of heredity and variation. Heredity and variation. Now what is heredity? Heredity are the similarities between the parents and their offsprings or the children. The differences between the parents and the offsprings or between the offsprings of the same parent, they are variations. Variations occur due to mixing of genes during meiosis, during crossing over of chromosomes. Okay, so the similarities between the parents and the offspring is heredity, and the differences between the offsprings of the same parent or between the parents and offspring is variations. So we can define genetics also like this. Genetics is basically the science which deals with study of similarities between parents and offsprings and also the differences and the laws related to such transmission. So that is genetics. Now, if I look at the external appearance of the person or any external characteristic of the person, earlobe may be attached or earlobe may be free, okay, the skin color or many other external characteristics, hair being curly or hair being straight, eyes blue or eyes brown. So these are external characters. So whatever I can see externally is phenotype. Phenotype means physical or external. Okay, so the external characters are called phenotype, whatever I can see physically or externally. But remember, children, that external characters are actually determined by our genes. Okay, the genes are responsible for the external characters of the person. The appearance, okay, the physical features are actually determined by the genes. So the external characters are the phenotype, but the genetic constitution, the genes, the coming together of all the genes, that is genotype. So external or physical characters of the individual is phenotype, and the genetic constitution is the genotype. Okay, now what are genes? Okay, we know about the DNA, children. This is the DNA. Okay, this is a DNA molecule. So there is a segment of DNA which determines the hereditary characters of the person. So the segment of the DNA which determines protein synthesis and hereditary characters of the person is called a gene. So it's nothing but a segment of DNA, remember. Now, we need to know about father of genetics. We have studied father of evolution is Charles Darwin. But somebody asks you, who is the father of genetics? So you will say Gregor Mendel. Okay, Gregor Mendel is the father of genetics. He was an Austrian monk, and there was a garden he had in the monastery, surrounding the monastery, where he did experiments on garden pea plant. Okay, garden pea. But the biological name of garden pea plant, remember children, Pisum sativum. I am repeating, biological name of garden pea is Pisum sativum. So he conducted many experiments in genetics on Pisum sativum plant, and therefore he proposed certain laws which we are going to study, and therefore he is called father of genetics, children. Okay, now why he selected pea plant? It had a lot of different characters, opposite or contrasting characters. Secondly, it could be self-pollinated as well, it could be cross-pollinated also, and it had a short lifespan, so you could study many generations. Okay, so that is about Pisum sativum genes. Now, what did Mendel do? Gregor Mendel. He took a pure tall pea plant. This is the genotype. This is the genetic representation. Okay, it is represented by two genes. Now remember, children, Mendel did not know about genes. Okay, he knew that there is something which is going from parents to offspring. There is something which is determining heredity. But he had not done the gene, the characters of gene were discovered much later. So Mendel did not know. So he has given the word factor. Instead of gene, he has given the word factor. So every character is represented by two factors. So here we are seeing height. Okay. So when we study a particular feature, then it is called character. Alternative forms of a character are called traits. Okay. Alternative forms of a character are called traits. So tall and dwarf. Okay. Fair and dark. Then curly hair, straight hair. They are opposites. So these are traits. Okay, so he took a pure tall pea plant and crossed it with a pure dwarf pea plant. So these are the factors of the genes. So remember, pure tall he represented as big T, big T. Now, why I've written capital I will tell you later. But look here, children. Okay, both the genes are same. Okay, both the genes are same. So it is called pure tall or homozygous. Okay, here also both the genes are small t, small t. This is a pure dwarf or homozygous dwarf. This is a pure tall or a homozygous tall. So he took a pure tall plant, he took a pure dwarf plant and cross-pollinated. And when after cross-pollinating, the next generation which he got, he called it F1 generation, children. He called it F1. F1 is first filial. This is first filial generation. Okay. He thought he might get some mixed characters, but to his surprise, he saw that all the F1 plants which he got, all the plants which he got after crossing pure tall and pure dwarf were tall. Okay, so he said that tallness is appearing, dwarfness is not appearing. Parent, one was tall, one was dwarf. So one big T gene from here we take, one small t gene from here we take, and this is having two different genes, dissimilar genes, big T and small t. So this is called heterozygous or hybrid. This is homozygous or pure. So the F1 generation has both the genes, big T as well as small t. This has only big T, this has only small t. But the F1 generation has big T as well as small t. So it is called heterozygous. Hetero means different, dissimilar. So he proposed his first law from here. And the first law is called law of dominance. What did he say? In a cross between two parents, the character or the trait which expresses itself in the F1 generation, or that character trait which appears in the F1 generation, is called dominant. Okay? That character or trait which does not express itself in the F1 generation, okay, or which is suppressed, is called recessive. I hope you all can understand my writing. It is called recessive. Okay, so the character or the trait which appears itself in the first generation is dominant. So tall, all the F1 generation plants were tall, and there was no dwarf F1 generation plant. So what did Mendel say? Now I'll tell you why this is capital and this is in small. In the F1 generation, he found all the plants to be tall. That means tallness, the gene for tallness has expressed itself. Okay, so tall is dominant. The gene for dwarfness is there, but the gene for dwarfness has not expressed itself. So small t is recessive. So I hope you've understood this. What is the first law? This is the first law, law of dominance. Okay, so that is F1 generation. Then what did he do? He self-pollinated F1 generation. It's also called selfing. Okay, he self-pollinated F1 generation to get F2 generation. We did first filial generation. We are going to do second filial generation now. So self-pollinated F1. So big T small t will be crossed with big T small t. So this square is called a Punnett square. This is called, it's named after scientist Reginald Punnett. It's used to decipher the genetic progeny. So Punnett square, this is called a Punnett square. Okay, so you separate these genes. You take big T small t, so big T small t, big T small t, big T goes with big T goes with small t, again big T goes with small t here and small t goes with small t. So you get tall, tall, tall. So 3 tall and you get just this one dwarf. But this I've just seen phenotype. So this is the phenotypic ratio. Okay, phenotypic ratio. Tall, tall, tall. So 3 you got tall and 1 dwarf. But if I ask you, tell me how many are pure tall? So only 1 pure tall, that is homozygous tall. How many are hybrid tall? 2 hybrid tall, that is heterozygous tall. And how many are pure dwarf? one pure dwarf. Dwarf will only appear in pure condition. It will never express in heterozygote because it is recessive. So this is 1:2:1. So this is genotypic ratio. So this is phenotypic ratio. This is genotypic ratio. Now look at this, children. The F1 hybrid had both the genes, both the factors, tallness as well as dwarfness. But when you did a self-pollination, both these factors separated from each other. This is when we are forming gametes. So they separated from each other. Unless they would have separated from each other, you would have never got small t, small t. Because big T separated from small t, because big T separated from, therefore you got small t, small t. So that comes to our second law. It is called law of segregation of characters. It is also called law of purity of gametes. What does the law state? Law states that in the F1 hybrid, the factors or the genes are together, but remember they will always separate during gamete formation. Only during gamete formation they'll be separate, otherwise in the individual they'll be together. So each gamete is pure for that particular factor. Okay, now I need to explain you what is monohybrid cross. Monohybrid cross. You see, I have taken a pure, Mendel has taken a pure tall plant, pure dwarf plant. So how many pairs of opposite characters are there? Listen to my question. How many pairs of opposite characters? Tall and dwarf, this is one pair of opposites. A cross which involves one pair of contrasting characters or one pair of opposites is called a monohybrid cross. Tall and dwarf, this is one pair. Okay? So it is called a monohybrid cross. Therefore, 3:1 and 3:1 is a monohybrid ratio. This is also monohybrid ratio because I have only taken one pair of opposites. I hope you've understood this. Now, what are alleles? Look at these. There are opposite genes. When I say opposite characters, they are traits. Now, when there are opposite genes or contrasting genes, they are called alleles. So I'll define alleles for you. Children, very important definition in the exam. Okay? What are alleles? Alleles are a pair of contrasting genes. Okay? Okay? Or you can say alternative pair of genes which are present on the same chromosome but affecting in different ways. Okay, so it is alternating forms. I'll repeat it once again. Alternative forms of a gene. Okay, these are alternative forms of a gene present on the same chromosome but affecting in different ways. If this word would have been expressed, it would have been tall. If this would have been expressed, it would have been dwarf. But tall expressed here in this case. Okay, so I will repeat definition of allele once again. Very important definition. Alternative forms of a gene present on the same chromosome but affecting in or expressing itself in different ways. Children, I hope you've understood about monohybrid cross because in the next part we are going to do dihybrid cross. I hope you've understood law of dominance and law of segregation.